Hi, in today's video I'm going to talk about a very familiar problem in Nigerian politics. Every time a new government comes into power, you hear different people saying, oh, this time is going to be new, this time is going to be great. There's so much hope, at least on the part of their supporters. But after a while, it turns into hopelessness, and then public opinion just crashes. And then the question is why? In this video, I'm going to talk about this and explain to you. It's not that governments are really that bad at all phases. It's one simple problem: communication strategy and communication effectiveness. There are two ways to acquire political power: by force or by the ballot box. One seems violent and the other one peaceful. But in reality, both require an army of strategists, an army of communicators, an army of enforcers. Whether through military conquest or democratic elections, the path to power is a battlefield, and the team that fights that war is trained for combat, not governance. And the biggest mistakes that politicians make is carrying over wartime officials into peacetime governance, carrying command and control structure into manage and administrative structure. The people who wage election war, the aggressive spokespeople, the attack dog types, the strategists, the spin doctors, these are actually very good for winning elections, but very bad for actual governance. Think of it this way: would you put a general in charge of building schools and hospitals? No. His job is to destroy, to bomb, and to control. But this is exactly what happens in politics. The campaign team, after election, are given the job of governance. Usually, it fails so spectacularly. Let's take a real-life example. A Twitter account of the current presidency. It's an unmitigated disaster. There is nothing going on, no coherent communication, no coherent strategic presentation of what the president is working on, what his agenda is. Just releasing and posting things willy-nilly, just like that. If it was a private company, the person in charge of it would have already been fired. All these boring announcements, it's not effective. This last week, the first deputy director of the IMF was in Nigeria and spoke very positively about the reforms of the government. But you can't find it anywhere on the official channels. There's no tweets, posts, there is no officials rushing to the news to go and hype it up, telling people that their suffering is not useless. It's just gone under the radar. If I wasn't someone who follows politics closely, I wouldn't even have seen the news. When the current ruling party was in opposition, they were actually very effective at jumping on such things. So what has changed? The election battlefield rewards combativeness, aggression, attack strategy. So when they were in opposition and such a thing came out, they would jump on it immediately. Oh, the president is gone wrong. You see, the IMF are saying this good or bad thing about him, wherever. They would use it and twist it to attack the sitting president. But then when they get into power, all governments, they all fail in this. They forget how to use these things to present themselves. Governance requires diplomacy, problem solving, and public engagement. When a leader continues using the command and control structure of electoral campaigns, three things happen, and you see them every day. They stay in attack mode. Instead of explaining policies, they fight enemies, both real and imagined. This leads to the second thing: they alienate the public, because it seems like they're only blaming and reacting. They react, they don't solve, they respond to criticism with defensiveness instead of practical solutions. And one of the biggest mistakes that lead to this is that politicians always appoint journalists as official spokespersons or communication heads. This is completely contraindicated for effective governance. Why? Because journalists are trained to question, critique, and shape public opinion, not to advocate policy or shape ideas. Their skill set is focused on exposing, on discussing, and on analyzing problems, not in solving them. So when placed in government roles, they often engage in media battles instead of shaping narratives. They focus on crisis amplification rather than damage control. They struggle with advocacy and problem solving because that was never their training. So if journalists are bad at handling government communication, who should do that? Better choice would be lawyers. Hear me out. I'm not saying this because I'm a lawyer. Lawyers by training are advocates. They understand persuasion and framing of arguments, as I'm so eloquently doing right now. They know how to negotiate. They know how to de-escalate tensions and mediate between conflicting interests. They know how to construct logical narratives, building upon precedent and making things very, very clear. Governance is about building consensus, not winning war, and lawyers are far better suited to this than attack-minded operatives. When government uses wartime tactics to explain peacetime policies, the public feels attacked rather than informed. When you send out the people who are managing political campaigns to come and manage governance, you get attack-oriented strategies. Next time you hear a government spokesperson stumbling through an explanation or presentation, he's only just doing the job he knows how to do, not the job he should be doing. And if you are in government, whether you're a local government chairman or all the way to the president, fire your communications team. They're making you look worse. They're making it more expensive for you to run elections in the future. And they may get you kicked out of office.